Good afternoon, everybody. This is the news with b.c.begley. I am your host, and it's Friday, November the 7th, 2025. And let's roll right into the top news stories for today. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced that she will not seek re-election to Congress, ending a nearly 40-year career representing San Francisco and making history as the first woman to serve as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. In a video message, Pelosi thanked her constituents and urged them to, quote, know your power and continue leading with democratic ideas. Her decision comes as a new generation of leaders emerges within the Democratic Party ahead of next year's elections. Pelosi, who is 85 years old, leaves behind a legacy that includes major legislative achievements like the Affordable Care Act and decades of global influence, the Associated Press has reported. Her departure follows health challenges and personal hardships, including her husband's 2022 assault, marking the close of one of the most powerful careers in American politics. U.S. President Donald Trump's announcement of a major deal to cut the prices of weight loss drugs was briefly halted when a healthcare executive fainted during the White House event. The man collapsed while Eli Lilly CEO David Ricks was speaking, prompting a 30-minute pause as medical staff attended to him. The White House later confirmed the individual was fine, though his identity was not officially released. The deal, involving Eli Lilly, will reduce the cost of drugs like Wegovy and Ozempic to as low as $245 a month for Medicare and Medicaid patients, The Telegraph has reported. Under the agreement, the companies will receive tariff relief, expand U.S. investments, and improve access to treatments for up to 40 million Americans. A new American Psychological Association survey reveals that 63% of young adults aged between 18 and 34 have considered moving abroad due to concerns about the nation's direction. Among parents, 53% have had similar thoughts. The 2025 Stress in America survey, conducted back in August among over 3,000 adults, found that while personal stress levels average 5 out of 10, collective anxiety about the country's future still remains high. 3 in 4 adults say they feel more stressed about the nation's future than before, with 76% calling it a major source of stress, Study Finds has reported. The findings suggest that Americans' unease runs deeper than partisan politics, reflecting sustained national anxiety regardless of which party is in power. Jurors acquitted Sean Dunn, a Washington, D.C. resident dubbed the Sandwich Guy, of assaulting a federal officer after he threw a Subway sandwich at a Border Patrol officer, Greg Lamore. The jury deliberated for 2 days before finding Dunn not guilty, reportedly eating sandwiches for lunch during deliberations. Dunn, a former Justice Department paralegal, faced only a misdemeanor after a grand jury declined to pursue more serious charges. The defense argued the incident was harmless, noting the sandwich remained wrapped and unharmed after hitting Lamore's vest, NBC News has reported. Dunn's case became a local symbol of resistance to the Trump administration, while prosecutors maintained that no assault on law enforcement should be tolerated. Israeli fighter jets carried out airstrikes on several towns in southern Lebanon on Thursday, escalating their near-daily attacks after warning residents to evacuate. The strikes followed Hezbollah's call for the Lebanese government to avoid negotiations with Israel. Israel said it targeted Hezbollah military infrastructure, accusing the group of rebuilding its capabilities nearly a year after a U.S.-brokered ceasefire. Lebanese officials condemned the strikes, saying they hit civilian areas, while Israel insisted it aimed only at Hezbollah positions, the Associated Press has reported. The attacks coincided with the Lebanese government's discussions on a plan to disarm Hezbollah and other armed groups, as tensions between the two sides continue to rise. Senate Republicans are advancing a new bipartisan spending package in an effort to end the record-long government shutdown, though its success remains uncertain. Many Democrats continue to demand an extension of expiring health care subsidies, which is not included in the current proposal. A test vote on the plan could happen as soon as Friday, forcing Democrats to choose between holding out for a health care deal or voting to reopen the government without one. While some Democrats are exploring a compromise, allowing only a future vote on the subsidies, most remain firm that progress on health care is essential. the Associated Press has reported. With growing pressure to ease the shutdown's impact on workers, airports, and food aid, both parties face increasing urgency to reach an agreement. Several people at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland became ill after a suspicious package was opened on Thursday, prompting the evacuation of 2 buildings, this according to a U.S. military spokesperson. The individuals were treated by base medical staff, found to be in stable condition, and then later released. Officials said the first responders determined that there was no ongoing threat, and normal operations have since resumed. CNN reported that the package may have contained an unknown white powder, though this has not yet been confirmed, Axios has reported. Military authorities have launched an investigation into the incident. United States forces conducted another strike on an alleged drug trafficking vessel in the Caribbean, killing 3 people, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth have said, raising the death toll from the Trump administration's campaign to at least 70. The strikes, launched in September, have targeted boats in the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific, destroying at least 18 vessels, though the United States has not publicly provided evidence linking them to drug smuggling. Hegseth described the latest operation as targeting a vessel operated by a designated terrorist organization in international waters, with no U.S. casualties, The Guardian has reported. The Trump administration has deployed significant forces to the region, including Navy ships, F-35 planes, and the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, while the Senate blocked a Democratic resolution that would have required congressional approval for strikes in Venezuela. Critics, including families of the deceased and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, have said that many of the victims were just civilians, and Maduro has accused President Trump of attempting to overthrow him under the pretext of combating drug trafficking. Representative Elise Stefanik has announced her campaign for governor of New York, blaming Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul for the state's high cost of living and linking her to New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. Stefanik's launch video emphasizes affordability, taxes, and safety, portraying Hochul as responsible for soaring cost and aligning with progressive policies. Although a staunch Trump ally, Stefanik's video makes no mention of President Trump, NBC News has reported. She enters the race as the first high-profile Republican candidate with a clear path in the primary after Representative Mike Lawler opted not to run, and her rise in GOP leadership and national profile as a Trump defender bolsters her candidacy. Despite President Trump's improved performance in the state of New York in 2024, Stefanik faces a challenging general election in a traditionally Democratic state, where Governor Hochul seeks a second full term while also facing a primary challenge from the Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado. The death toll from a UPS plane crash near Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport has risen to 13, officials said on Thursday. The McDonnell Douglas MD-11 freighter, UPS Flight 2976, crashed on Tuesday while en route to Honolulu after its left engine detached, sparking a large fireball. Victims included the plane's 3 crew members and civilians on the ground, including Luis Findon and his 3-year-old granddaughter, Kimberly Asa. Authorities continue to search through debris, with 9 people still reported missing, while the NTSB has recovered black box data and the main engine component, ABC News has reported. Preliminary investigations are ongoing, with federal agencies including the FBI and the EPA assisting, though no probable cause has yet been determined. All right, we're just getting started, and here's a look at the live weather radar from the National Weather Service. And now let's take a look at the National Weather Forecast for today. A storm system will bring rainy and stormy conditions to parts of the Tennessee and Ohio valleys tonight, with a slight risk of severe weather. Rain will extend into the northeast and mid-Atlantic, with some snow mixing in across northern New England. Over the weekend, an Arctic front will push through the Midwest and the East, bringing another round of rain, storms, and some snow. Meanwhile, a separate system will spread mixed precipitation across the Northwest, the Northern Plains, and the Great Lakes before frigid air surges southward into the Great Plains and the Mississippi Valley. In contrast, Texas will see unseasonably hot weather through Saturday, highs in the 80s and in the 90s, up to 20 degrees above normal, before cooling sharply on Sunday as the Arctic front arrives. China's largest and most advanced aircraft carrier, the Fujian, has officially entered service, marking a major milestone for the world's largest navy, Chinese state media has reported. Unlike China's first two carriers, the Fujian was both designed and built domestically, and features an electromagnetic catapult system capable of launching heavier aircraft, including the J-35 stealth fighter, the J-15T heavy fighter, and the KJ-600 early warning plane. Chinese President Xi Jinping presided over the commissioning ceremony, emphasizing the ongoing modernization of China's Navy, which aims to be, quote, world-class by the year 2049. While China now fields 3 carriers, the United States Navy, with 11 nuclear-powered carriers, remains the most advanced, as the Fujian is conventionally powered with an estimated 10,000 nautical mile range, NBC News has reported. The new carrier is expected to strengthen China's operational capabilities in distant waters and could play a key role in any potential conflict over Taiwan, prompting close monitoring by neighboring countries like Japan. Several Latin American leaders have criticized President Donald Trump's stance on climate change at the COP30 UN summit in Brazil. Brazilian President Lula da Silva condemned, quote, extremist forces, spreading misinformation and threatening future generations, while Colombia's President Gustavo Petro and the Chilean president directly singled out President Donald Trump, highlighting his absence and denying that the climate crisis is real. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron also warned that climate misinformation undermines global consensus and democratic efforts to meet the Paris Agreement. The White House defended President Trump, calling the climate initiatives, quote, a green energy scam, and praising his common-sense energy agenda as protective of American interest, Axios has reported. The remarks underscore international frustration with the United States' approach to climate policy under the Trump administration. United States President Donald Trump hosted Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban at the White House on Friday, highlighting their shared conservative outlook, but the visit comes amid tensions over Hungary's continued reliance on Russian oil. Orban sought exemptions from the U.S. sanctions on Russian energy, as well as U.S. support for nuclear fuel purchases and broader economic cooperation, while also securing President Trump's endorsement ahead of competitive parliamentary elections in April. Despite Orban's strong support for Trump and alignment on some foreign policy issues, including EU dynamics and the Gaza conflict, his pro-Kremlin energy policies and opposition to Ukraine's defense complicate matters. Bipartisan U.S. senators have called on European nations, including Hungary, to fully cut Russian energy imports, framing Hungary's position as self-inflicted due to its failure to diversify, The Hill has reported. The meeting underscores President Trump's personal ties to Orban, but it remains uncertain whether that friendship will influence U.S. policy on Russian energy sanctions or Europe's support for Ukraine. Typhoon Kalmegi wreaked havoc in central Vietnam on Thursday after devastating the Philippines, where it killed at least 188 people, mostly in Cebu province. The storm brought torrential rains and powerful winds to areas that were already flooded from record rainfall, leaving homes destroyed, trees uprooted, and tens of thousands displaced. Survivors in the Philippines are now struggling to salvage belongings and to clear debris as floodwaters recede, highlighting the immense human toll, CNN has reported. Meanwhile, another tropical storm is strengthening and could reach Category 3 or even 4 over the North Luzon area, threatening further flooding and destruction. The Louvre's president and director, Laurence Descartes, acknowledged ongoing security shortcomings following the theft of crown jewels worth over €88 million 3 weeks ago. During an interview on Friday, she said a, quote, master plan to upgrade the museum's security, including improvements to video surveillance, is being implemented. A recent report by the French Court of Audit criticized the museum for prioritizing acquisitions and visible projects over security, noting that only 26.7 million euro was spent on maintenance and upgrades between the years of 2018 and 2024, when compared to 105.4 million euro on art acquisitions. The report also highlighted that a 2017 audit had already identified vulnerabilities in the museum's technical protection systems and warned of potential security breaches, Euro News has reported. Despite allocating 83 million euro for a security overhaul, only 3 million euro had been invested thus far, and key modernization tenders were not launched until December of 2024. North Korea fired at least one ballistic missile toward its eastern waters, South Korea's military reported on Friday, following recent artillery tests and United States Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's visit for annual security talks. The short-range missile traveled 435 miles toward the EC, or the Sea of Japan, likely landing outside Japan's exclusive economic zone. The launch comes amid rising tensions as South Korea prepares to build a nuclear-powered submarine with U.S. support, seeking enriched uranium for fuel. North Korea has rejected renewed dialogue with the United States and South Korea, insisting on retaining its nuclear arsenal, while showcasing its new intercontinental ballistic missiles during a September military parade, Al Jazeera has reported. Meanwhile, North Korea and Russia met this week to strengthen military cooperation, and South Korean intelligence reports indicate Pyongyang has deployed thousands of troops and construction personnel to support Russia's war effort in Ukraine. Indonesia's national police chief said a suspect linked to explosions at a mosque inside a school complex in North Jakarta was a student there, and authorities are now investigating his background and his motive. The blast, which occurred during Friday prayers, injured dozens but caused no deaths. The suspected perpetrator is among two people currently in surgery. Police found toy weapons and writings at the scene, which are being examined to determine a possible motive, Al Jazeera has reported. The Deputy House Speaker confirmed the suspect is undergoing surgery but provided no further details. Spain's former king Juan Carlos has, for the first time, recounted how he accidentally killed his younger brother Alfonso nearly 70 years ago. In his memoirs, published in France, Juan Carlos described the March 29, 1956 incident at the age of 18 when he fired a .22 caliber pistol in a room at a family home, unaware that a bullet remained in the chamber. That bullet struck Alfonso, then just 14 years old, in the forehead, killing him in their father's arms. Juan Carlos called the tragedy a, quote, before and after moment in his life, leaving him with lasting grief and a sense of unhappiness. No judicial inquiry was held at the time, and his father later disposed of the pistol in the sea, the Telegraph has reported. The memoirs, written with journalist Lawrence Derbray, will be published in Spanish in December, while Juan Carlos, who abdicated in 2014 amid scandal, was not invited by King Felipe VI to the upcoming ceremonies marking the 50th anniversary of Franco's death. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum announced on Wednesday that she is pressing charges against a man who groped her on a Mexico City street the day before. The incident, captured on video, went viral, prompting Sheinbaum to call for legislation making such crimes punishable in all 32 Mexican states. She emphasized that the assault reflects a broader problem faced by women nationwide, saying, quote, if this can happen to the president, what can we expect for all the young women in our country? Sheinbaum also condemned the resharing of the video, calling it unethical and potentially a legal violation that constitutes re-victimization, Axios has reported. In response, she plans to launch a campaign to educate men on respecting women, framing the effort as a defense of women's dignity and rights across Mexico. The United Kingdom's government has recovered £74 million from excessive profits made by companies running asylum accommodations, following a review of contracts after Labour took office last year. While welcomed, the sum represents only a small fraction of the £2.1 billion spent on asylum accommodation in the years 2024 and 2025, equivalent to less than 2 weeks' cost. Ministers have sought to cut expenses through room sharing, cheaper alternatives, and plans to use military sites, while promising to end the use of asylum hotels before the next general election. The Home Office faced criticism from MPs for mismanaging contracts and for underutilizing mechanisms to reclaim excess profits, with some contracts allowing termination in the year 2026, the BBC has reported. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Phillip argued that ending hotel use entirely is the only solution, highlighting rising numbers of illegal channel crossings and framing the issue as part of a broader border control challenge. Today is November the 7th, 2025, and on this day in history, in the year 1916, Jeannette Rankin of Montana became the first woman elected to the United States Congress. In the year 1929, the Museum of Modern Art opened to the public in New York City. And in the year 1940, the original Tacoma Narrows Bridge in Washington state collapsed in a windstorm just 4 months after its opening. And November the 7th is National Bittersweet Chocolate with Almonds Day. Okay, it's 21 past the hour, and let's do a quick market update. The S&P 500 is down 0.97%. The Nasdaq is down 1.66%. Gold is up 0.43%. Oil is up 0.23%. Bitcoin is up 0.37%. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 0.64%. Hey, real quick, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. That way you can stay up to date on all of our news stories and our live show. And now let's go into the last block of news for today. Vice President J.D. Vance criticized a federal court ruling requiring the Trump administration to make full SNAP payments for November, calling it, quote, absurd, during a White House roundtable. He argued that the court should not dictate how the president allocates funds during a government shutdown, and then he urged Democrats to reopen the government. U.S. District Judge John McConnell had rejected the administration's plan for partial SNAP payments, prompting the Justice Department to appeal. The Trump administration had planned to cut off SNAP for 42 million Americans due to the shutdown, which has become the longest in U.S. history, The Hill has reported. Vance said the White House would prioritize funding certain operations while complying with the law and keeping the government functions running. Maria Florinda Rios Perez, a 32-year-old mother of 4 and a house cleaner from Guatemala, was fatally shot outside a home near Indianapolis after she and her husband mistakenly arrived at the wrong address for work. Her brother said she was trying to open the door with keys when she was shot in the head and fell into her husband's arms. Police confirmed the incident was not a home invasion and that the victims were part of a cleaning crew, emphasizing the case is under investigation and cautioning against spreading unverified information. Boone County law allows homeowners to use deadly force against perceived threats, but the family is calling for the shooter to be arrested and charged, NBC News has reported. Rios' family now faces raising money for her children and repatriating her body back to Guatemala, remembering her as a loving and dedicated mother. A 19-year-old Seattle area man, Saeed Ali Murray, was arrested by the FBI in connection with a foiled Michigan terror plot linked to the ISIS group, marking the 8th arrest in the case. Murray and co-conspirator Thomas Khan Jimenez Guzel, also 19 years old, are charged with conspiracy and attempting to provide material support to a designated terrorist organization, including plans to join ISIS in Turkey. The plot involved at least 7 other alleged ISIS supporters, including individuals in Michigan, New Jersey, the United Kingdom, and Sweden, who were scouting targets such as gay bars and amusement parks. FBI documents show Murray had previously been under investigation in 2023 and maintained online communications with pro-ISIS extremists, sharing photos of allegiance to ISIS, NBC News has reported. Authorities described the plot as serious and well-coordinated, highlighting how online radicalization had translated into real-world plans to travel overseas and commit violence. Astronomers have observed the largest and most distant flare ever detected from a supermassive black hole, nicknamed Superman, originating 10 billion light-years away. At its peak, the flare shone with the brightness of 10 trillion suns. The flare came from an active galactic nucleus, where gas and dust, spiraling into a supermassive black hole, became superheated, emitting intense radiation. Researchers believe the black hole likely consumed a massive star, producing this unprecedented flare, CNN has reported. Such extreme flaring is extraordinarily rare, occurring in roughly 1 in a million AGN. This, according to the study that was published in Nature Astronomy. In a groundbreaking experiment, scientists recreated cosmic fireballs on Earth using a particle accelerator to study the high-temperature plasma jets emitted by blazars, which are supermassive black hole-powered galactic engines. Teams from the University of Oxford and the STFC's Central Laser Facility used CERN's superproton synchrotron to generate electron-positron pairs and blast them through a meter of plasma, simulating conditions in these extreme cosmic jets. The experiment allows researchers to investigate the origin of magnetic fields and missing high-energy gamma rays in intergalactic space. The findings could shed light on how such phenomenon were seeded in the early universe and may point to physics beyond the Standard Model, Space.com has reported. The study, demonstrating the potential of laboratory astrophysics, was published on November the 3rd in PNAS. SpaceX successfully launched its Starlink Group 1114 mission yesterday, lifting 28 satellites into low Earth orbit atop a Falcon 9 rocket from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The booster, B-1093, completed its 8th flight, performing stage separation, deceleration burns, and landing on the drone ship Of Course I Still Love You about 8.5 minutes after its liftoff. B-1093 will return to port for future launches, and the 28 satellites will now join more than 8,800 Starlink spacecraft already in orbit, expanding the company's global internet service, Space.com has reported. This marked the 142nd Falcon 9 mission of the year, and the 102nd dedicated to building the Starlink constellation. Archaeologists from the Israel Antiquities Authority have uncovered one of Israel's oldest wine presses and rare Canaanite ritual artifacts near Tel Megiddo in the Jezreel Valley, dating back over 5,000 years. The early Bronze Age wine press, with a sloped treading floor and collection vat, indicates organized wine production alongside nearby residential structures, reflecting early urbanization. Later finds from the late Bronze Age include ritual objects such as a ceramic shrine model, imported Cypriot vessels, and a rare libation set shaped like a ram, used to pour sacred liquids in ceremonial offerings. These discoveries suggest that rural communities performed devotional practices outside the fortified city, complementing temple worship, Archaeology News online magazine has reported. The artifacts, bridging urban industry and religious life, are now on display at the J. and Jenin National Campus for the Archaeology of the Land of Israel in Jerusalem. United States Airlines canceled hundreds of flights on Friday after the FAA ordered reductions due to air traffic controllers missing paychecks amid the historic government shutdown. Staffing shortages affected major airports including Newark, San Francisco, and Atlanta, causing widespread delays and forcing airlines to adjust schedules at the last minute. More than 700 flights were canceled as of 9 a.m. local time, about 3% of the day's schedule, with cancellations expected to rise to 10% by November the 14th. Analysts noted that while fewer seats could temporarily boost revenue, prolonged disruptions may reduce near-term booking demand, CNBC has reported. The cancellations also drove a surge in alternative travel, with Hertz reporting more than a 20% increase in one-way rental reservations compared with last year. Total U.S. household debt reached a record $18.6 trillion last quarter, with most borrowers keeping up with payments, though young adults are under increasing strain. Serious delinquencies, 90 days or more past due, rose to 3% overall, the largest quarterly increase since 2014, and hit about 5% among 18 to 29-year-olds, largely driven by student loan defaults. Other debt categories, including mortgages, auto loans, and credit cards, have remained relatively stable, supported by strong home equity and strict lending standards. Overall, 4.5% of debt was in some stage of delinquency, the highest since early 2020, but consistent with pre-pandemic levels and far below the 2009 peak of 11%, The Hill has reported. Analysts note that while household debt is rising, the debt-to-income ratio remains manageable, suggesting broad financial stability despite pockets of strain among younger borrowers. Layoff announcements surged in October to 153,074, making a 183% increase from September and the highest October total since 2003, as companies adjust staffing amid the AI boom. The technology sector led cuts with 33,281 jobs lost, while consumer products and nonprofits also saw significant increases. Year-to-date announced layoffs have reached 1.1 million, the highest since 2020, reflecting a combination of AI adoption, slowing consumer and corporate spending, and rising cost. Despite this, ADP reported net private sector job growth of 42,000 in October, and state-level jobless claims have yet to spike, CNBC has reported. Experts warned that ongoing layoffs and hiring freezes could signal further weakness in the labor market, even as the Federal Reserve moves to ease interest rates. Okay, everybody, that is our show for today. I hope all of you have enjoyed it. I will see everybody on Monday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time for another episode of The News with BC, and I hope everybody has a great weekend. I can't wait for the weekend. All right, that's it, guys.